You've done a survey on people receiving JobSeeker payments. What have you found?
Well, we've been very keen to understand what has happened for people who, many of whom were trying to get by on $40 a day before the government did this really important doubling of the JobSeeker payment, as we saw the devastating almost doubling of the number of people needing to rely on Social Security because they were losing their jobs. Look, the findings are extraordinary. You know, the reality is people, over 90% of people are saying that if they went back to $40 a day, it would have a devastating effect on their ability to cover the basics. And, you know, we've got 83% saying that they are much healthier in terms of what they're eating. Over 90% are now saying they're able to afford what they need in terms of fresh fruit and vegetables. But prior to this, over 70% of people were reporting that they were skipping meals altogether. And about 30% at meals every single day. So it's really important the government is listening to this. We know at the moment the government is considering what it should do in terms of JobSeeker. Most people are overwhelmingly in the situation now where they can finally sleep with a little peace of mind that they're able to keep the roof over their head and feed themselves. A situation that we've not had for a very, very long time. And we know that, of course, all those precious dollars are being spent on the essentials in the real economy and really helping in terms of that fiscal stimulus and what we need for the economy over the long term.
So what exactly are you calling for in terms of a permanent increase?
Look, we think it's vital that the government make sure that the social security system is fixed to protect people from poverty. If you're a single person, to just have you above, the experience of poverty, you do need about $500 per week, absolute minimum. And of course, if you've got additional costs, bearing in mind that's to cover your housing costs, and we know many people have got mortgages, rents that they are currently, getting some flexibility with from landlords, but that won't last forever. And of course, if you're, for example, got a disability, you're likely to need additional costs, single parents as well. And so the vast majority of people out there need every single dollar that the government has finally been delivering for people. And so we are understanding the government's working on a long-term solution. We invite them to work with us, work with the experts. They did that on the response to the coronavirus, threat itself. And we again expect and hope the government will do that with the ACOSS and many of those grassroots organisations that know the reality of what people need out there to be able to cover the basics. And of course, do what you can to be trying to secure further employment.
Well, we know that a number of those things you mentioned, there are additional subsidies for people who are on JobSeeker, including energy subsidies for people who are having issues covering their housing costs. But just on that point of getting people back into employment, what is the incentive for them if we do have these payments covering their basic costs, basic needs, for them to be seeking employment?
Well, this is an old tired idea that the best way to support people into job is to starve people is just completely out of touch with reality of what it requires for people to be able to do what they can to secure paid employment. That's why we've had such broad support for a very long time from the business community, from employer groups, as well as from the community sector and the union movement on saying if you want people to be able to get as possible back into paid work opportunities as they open up, people need to not have to worry about the very basics like do I have a place to live and food, but have the right work opportunities presented to you, and so you get the right kind of balance between what terrible distress when you've got absolutely nothing, and then making sure that people, as those job opportunities open up, that they are able to present themselves well, have a new pair of shoes if that's what you need for a job interview, and get out there, because there's no question that the work incentives are out there. People are desperate to get paid work. That's not the issue here. The issue is making sure the safety net is adequate.
But if we keep it at the JobSeeker level, that's well beyond starvation level. When you say that you're keeping people hungry to get them back into work, we're well covering those cost of livings here. So if we do maintain it at this level, what is the incentive? Let's
just pause here for a moment on the real world of what it requires to live and cover the basics. Right now, $550 per week. If you are eligible for the Commonwealth Rent Assistance, you might get an additional up to a maximum of $70 a week. Now, you think about that in terms of having covering the cost of housing. Housing affordability out there, we're going to have a huge demand on this lower end of the housing market because there is now a doubling of the number of people who have, fallen down dramatically in terms of their income levels. And so housing costs are chronic. We're not out of the woods there yet in terms of safety. We've got to make sure people can afford housing ongoing. And so these are not generous dollars. This is the basics of what people need. As I say, the difference between what that level would be and the minimum wage is still an appropriate gap. And we think the government really needs to think very carefully here about what the economy needs and people needs as we have this sort of long and hard road ahead of us in terms of economic recovery.
I mean, this is by your own survey metrics, though, when your survey says 93% can now afford more fresh fruit and vegetables, 86% can afford more meat, 83% reported they were eating better. You don't have a metric there of people who weren't eating. It seems like these metrics are pretty strong, and why would the incentives be there?
Well, I think important to highlight here that the overwhelming majority of people who participated in this survey were people who were already prior to the doubling of the JobSeeker payment, relying on the much lower rate of $40 per day. And so the kind of findings we've got here are about the reality of people who were on $40 a day, who were already struggling to find any kind of paid work, and who then finally received some additional dollars from the doubling of the JobSeeker payment. Only 1 in 7 of the people who participated in this survey had previously been in paid work and then lost their job. I think that's understandable. I mean, for many people who'd never been involved in, the experience of losing unemployment might not have been, able to even grapple with the notion of what this meant for me, where they needed to be. We understand we've got to keep listening to what's going on out there and the reality for people. But I think what we've got to hear here is for over 25 years, we had no real increase in the level of the unemployment payment in Australia. Many economists have said it was the greatest fear in Australia we had as a country. The time for the government, they did the right thing by doubling the level to make sure people could cover the basics. It's working in the economy as well, and we need to make sure that we are setting the level in the right way going forward.
Dr. Cassandra Goldie, we have to leave it there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.